Okay, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Welcome to the 2022 annual meeting of FNB Hartford Bancorp. We have individuals joining us obviously in person. We also are broadcasting our meeting presentation today via Zoom. And for the benefit of those that are joining us online, I'd like to introduce Jen Johnson, who is the bank's Vice President, Chief Risk and Operations Officer. And she's just going to provide some housekeeping items for those that are joining us online. So Jen, would you help those with that, please?
Good morning. Just a reminder that if you would like to submit any questions, you can do that via the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. There's also a chat feature as well. If you need another copy of the annual report, that is available at www.fortebankwyi.com/shareholder-meeting. You can get a PDF version of the annual report there if you need it. Voting is not facilitated electronically, so either you should have submitted your proxy or you can yet today submit your proxy. There should be instructions in your packet. If you need to do that electronically via email, we will accept it, but we won't accept any voting. We will take questions though. If you have any difficulties, you can contact me via email or in the chat, and I will do my best to facilitate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jen. Appreciate that. And want to give those shareholders who are not present with us the same opportunities as those who are in person with us today. So as we begin this morning's meeting, I'd like to introduce Rochelle Priestkin, who is chairperson for the board for the holding company. Rochelle.
Good morning and welcome. So to start off the meeting, we would like to call for nominations and election of the chair and secretary for today's annual meeting.
I make a motion that we appoint Rochelle Priestkin as chair and Tim Perman as secretary.
Motion by Ken Reiser,
Second.
second by Craig Love. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. So with that, declaration of compliance requirements for conducting the annual meeting. In accordance the corporation's bylaws, a majority of the outstanding shares of the corporation entitled to vote, represented in person or by proxy, shall constitute a quorum at a meeting of the shareholders. As of the close of business yesterday, Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022 at 5 p.m., the corporation had received proxies constituting 349,786 shares and representing 80% of the shares outstanding. As such, I will declare that sufficient shares are represented either in person or by proxy to properly conduct this annual meeting. At this time, we will have the reading of the minutes of the March 21st annual meeting, which will be done by Tim, the secretary.
Thank you, Rochelle. Minutes of the annual meeting of FNB Hartford Bancorp Inc. on March 24th, 2021. Chairperson of the board, Rochelle R. Priestkin, called the annual meeting of FNB Hartford Bancorp to order at 10:03 a.m. 18 shareholders were present in person and 8 shareholders were present via Zoom webinar functionality. The first order of business was the election of a chair and a secretary for the meeting. Ken Reiser made a motion to appoint Rochelle R. Priestkin as acting chair for the meeting and Lori Hilger as acting secretary. The motion was seconded by Scott Lopez and the motion carried. Chairman Priestkin declared that in accordance with the bylaws of the corporation, a majority of the outstanding shares entitled to vote, those represented either in person or by proxy, shall constitute a quorum at the meeting of shareholders. And as of Tuesday, March 23rd, 2021 at 5 p.m., the corporation had received proxies representing 381,950 of the outstanding shares, or 88%, and declared that sufficient shares were represented to conduct the annual meeting. Lori Hilger read the minutes of the July 22nd, 2020 annual meeting. There being no additions or corrections, Scott Lopez made a motion to approve the minutes as read. Al Locker seconded the motion and the motion carried. Lori Hilger presented the 2020 FNB Hartford Bancorp Inc. financial reports, including a year-end balance sheet income and expense statement, and reserve accounts. Chairperson Prishkin reported that the Board of Directors had placed into nomination the following individuals as Class 1 directors: Rochelle R. Prishkin, Scott A. Lopez, and Craig R. Semler. The next order of business was the voting on the directors in nomination. No other nominations for directors having been received. In accordance with the corporation's bylaws, nominations for directors have been closed. Chairperson Prishkin informed the shareholders present that shareholders who returned their proxy, their shares shall be cast as provided in that proxy. Shareholders in attendance today who have not returned a proxy shall have received a ballot upon registration. You will be asked to cast your ballot and present them to our ballot clerk as appointed, Kathy Ingalls. Voting will remain open until 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. Shareholders who submitted a proxy may vote by ballot. You must contact the corporate secretary to receive a ballot and submit that ballot via electronic means by, again, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time today. President Perman addressed the shareholders in attendance at the meeting and reported that to the stockholders on the following items: loan and deposit growth trends, 5-year positive trend in non-performing assets to total asset ratio, 5-year trend of net charge-offs to average loans, community support for loan deferrals, forbearances, and paycheck protection loans due to the COVID-19 pandemic, 5-year growth trend in net income, 5-year growth trend in return on assets in a comparison to peer group, the 5-year growth trend in earnings per share, 5-year trend in return on equity, and the FNB Hartford Bancorp Inc. 5-year stock valuation as compared to book value. He additionally praised all Forte Bank staff members for excellent loan and deposit growth, working with customers to support their needs while having our lobbies closed following the onset of the pandemic, developing remote work capabilities, returning to full service and opening of our lobbies. Our staff exemplifies what community banking is all about. President Perman recognized past chair of the board, Dennis R. Carroll, for sharing 60 years in the community banking industry, all at First National Bank of Hartford, now Forte Bank, and reflected on his significant banking career accomplishments. He was elected as chair of FNB Hartford Bancorp and the bank on November 9, 2002, and continued to serve as chair until August 1st, 2020. Significant contributions under his tenure included the formation of a one-bank holding company, implementation of an employee stock ownership plan, and incorporation of the first bank-owned development corporation in the country. Other significant community contributions included an incorporating member of the Hartford Area Development Corporation, alderperson for the City of Hartford Common Council, commissioner for the Hartford Development Community Authority, founding director of Hartford Business Improvement District, founding director and treasurer of the Shower Arts and Activities Center, a member of Hartford Lions and Masonic Lodge, and longtime member of First United Methodist Church, serving on various church and conference committees. Chairperson Prishkin reported the voting results received at that date, to elect Class 1 directors. Votes for the 3 nominees, 379,370. Withholding authority to vote for all 3 nominees, 3,000. And withholding authority to vote for individual nominees, 452. Chairman Prishkin recognized that the 3 nominees, having received sufficient number of votes in favor of their election as directors of the corporation, and declared them duly elected, subject to the 3 p.m. closure for all voting and confirmation by the corporation secretary. Ken Reiser made a motion for the same proxy arrangement for the next annual meeting. Al Lawfer seconded that motion. The motion carried. There being no further business, Chairman Prishkin concluded the in-person portion of the meeting at 10:46 a.m. The annual meeting will automatically adjourn at 3 p.m. this afternoon. Respectfully submitted, Lori A. Hilger, Secretary.
Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes as read? If not, can I ask for a motion to approve?
I would so move to accept the minutes as presented.
Motion by Scott Lopez,
I'll second.
second by Mark Hauser, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. And so at this time, we will have the presentation of the 2021 financial reports by Tim.
Thank you again, Rochelle. So we'll begin with the financial statement for the holding company. So this is just a summary report. All of you should have received the full statement for FNB Hartford Bancorp as of 2021. That also included a comparison to 2022. So key balance sheet components is Fed funds sold was $12,431,000. That's a reduction from $33,639,000, about 63% the previous year. Investments increased by about $5.5 million to $39,752,000. Loans increased 22.4% to $245,309,000 from just over $200 million, and deposits increased from $250 million to $284,181,000, 13.4%. Overall total assets for the corporation increased 11.6% to $323,295. Just note that significant deployment of the bank's assets, movement of $20 million out of Fed funds, and then again deployed into investments and loans. So when you add the deployment of those balances in Fed funds plus the gain in deposits that we had over the year, that resulted in the increase of about $50 million overall to go with the combination of investments and loans.
Is it working?
There we go. Okay. Next report page is on interest income. Investment income was just over $706,000. That was a decline of about 24%, even though we increased the balances in our investments by about $5 million. Low rate environment for existing portfolio maturities, as well as that increase resulted in a net decline in income from investments. The growth, however, in our outstanding loans provided a 13.6% increase in interest on loans from just over $9 million to $10.3 million. The total interest income improved 12.4% from $9.8 million to just over $11 million at the end of last year. Interest expense, deposits, interest expense declined significantly. Again, as a result of a low rate environment, it declined just about 35% from $1,040,000 to $678,000. Our interest on borrowings declined as well by about just under 45% from $87,000 to $83,000. We don't do a lot of borrowing outside of the bank, but this was influenced by the Federal Home Loan Bank providing $5 million of advances at a 0% interest rate for 1 year, and that was in response to support for COVID relief. Total interest expense declined from $1,128,000 to $726,000, again a decline of just over 35%. Provision for loan losses was $182,350. The prior year was 585, a decline of 68.8%. Obviously, 2020 was impacted heavily by unknowns for COVID-19. The bank provisioned heavily in 2020 for that, and after knowing what the outcomes was in greater detail for COVID conditions, we reduced our provision by about $300,000 even for the time. Non-interest income, we had an increase in service charge on deposits from $376,000 to $430,000. Our investment services department generated $403,000, a nice improvement over $306,000 in 2020. Gain on the sale of loans into the secondary market declined 47, almost 48%, from $1,632,000 to $851,000. Again, 2020 was heavily impacted by an extremely low rate environment, a lot of refinance activity. The majority of customers who had the opportunity to refinance had taken advantage of that in 2020 and some in 2019. So there was very little refinance activity in 2021, and there was some nice improvement in purchase activity. So even though that's a decline of almost half, actually we exceeded our budget. Our budget for gain on the sale was $750,000. So we had about $100,000 gain over that. The gain on the sale of fixed assets, this represented two different transactions, totaling $119,500 net. We did sell a small piece of other real estate owned that was a result of a loan collection. But the greatest majority of that was the sale of bank-owned real estate on the corner of Highway 60 and 67. We determined that that piece of property was no longer in our strategic plan, our near-term strategic plan for branch expansion. And so we decided to sell that property, resulting in a gain. Other non-interest income was $598,000, small increase over the previous year of $579,000. Total non-interest income was just over $2.4 million, a decline of about 17% from $2.8 million the year before. Again, a significant portion of that came from adjustments in the sale of loans sold into the secondary market. Non-interest expense, salaries were $4,893,000, an increase of about 7.4% over $4,005,000 the year before. Computer services, about the same, a little bit of increase, 5%, $1,091,000 versus $1,038,000 the year before. Advertising, $176,000 versus $172,000 in 2020. FDIC insurance went up 91% from $52,000 in 2020 to just over $100,000 in 2021. 2020 was impacted by a change in assessment on deposits that actually originated in 2018. There was a target set of 1.3% of total deposits for the entire industry. That was actually reached in 2018, and as a result, the FDIC provided credits back to financial institutions. Those credits began in 2019. They continued into 2020. We received all the credits that were available to us. And so 2021 would have been more of a typical year at $100,000. And again, that represents both normal assessment rates as well as the increase in deposits that we generated throughout the year. Other expenses were just over 5% at $1,621,000 from $1,541,000. And overall total non-interest expense was up 7%, increasing to $7,884,000 versus $7,360,000 in 2020. Net income, total before tax was $4,648,000. versus 3,639,000 in 2020, an increase of 27.7%. Our tax liability increased as well by just under 34% from 873,000 to 1,170,000. And our net income increased just over 25%, again, almost 26% from 2,765,000 in 2020 to 3,478,499. Significant improvement, and historically, that net income figure is the largest that we have ever experienced over the history of our corporation. Any questions on the balance sheet, income or expense statement? Okay, then I believe I'll go right into some additional sharing of information with you. Just some key things that I have highlighted in the past and would like to continue to highlight for you. This is a 5-year trend of the bank's loan and deposit growth. Again, last year, our loans are the light green and deposits are the blue. In 2021, we had a 22.5% increase in net loans and a 13.4% increase in deposit growth. And that is a trend that has been continuing up. Actually, I've included in here the green line, which is the two-period moving average for loan growth, and that continues to be in an upward trajectory. Loan and deposit growth is similar. There was a little bit of a flattening out. But 2020 was more heavily impacted by increases due to COVID stimulus than 2021, but again, 13.4% is outstanding growth on the deposit side as well. So really strong performance in growth from both a loan and deposit standpoint. This is a new slide that I didn't share last year, but I thought it was important and maybe a little difficult to see this. But this is a 5-year review of delinquent and classified assets within the bank. This is Forte Bank history. And it's kind of set up to show a progression of how loans move through performing to a non-performing status. So the progression would be 30 to 89 days past due a non-accrual loans, and typically maybe simultaneous to that, loans would be classified as special mention. After they have material weaknesses, they would become classified as substandards, and then potentially moving into doubtful as to whether the bank were to collect or either all or a portion of that debt. And then sometimes if it's real estate secured debt and we actually go through a formal collection action and get that property back, it would result in what is classified as other real estate owned. So I think what's key to share with you in this model here is the trajectory. And so again, these progressions generally take place. So you would generally see that loans would move from a 30 to 89 or non-accrual status, and then they move into the substandard, the doubtful or loss categories. We did show an increase in special mention, and that's an internal rating where we look at particular loan, and if we identify some weakness in it, we would potentially classify as special mention. Substandard and doubtful are actually regulatory classifications, so it's our way of monitoring the credit before it gets to those more substandard ratings. So you see a progression moving up of special mentions, but you also see a decline coming down in it after that. Generally, if you would model that, you would see that there would be an increase also in movement to substandard and doubtful credits, which you do see a little bit of that, but you also see the decline coming out the opposite side of it. So there's also a decline in 2021 of substandard classifications and doubtfuls. And what this really shows is that our progression has been is that managing these credits internally, identifying quickly where there's a problem, and then moving them either into more formal collection or stronger management has resulted in a decline in overall. The more severe classifications or impacts upon the bank's balance sheet, which would be movement into the doubtful or OREO. And you can actually see that historically throughout this entire 5-year period of time, the bank's doubtful and OREO classifications have been extremely low. This is a really good picture of, I think, credit management within our bank. This is a component of that, which would be non-performing assets to total assets ratio. This is a comparison of Forte Bank against our peer group. Non-performing assets, again, being those loans that would be 90 days past due or more in a non-accrual status, plus OREO. We have seen a steady decline to actually in 2020, we had only 0.1% of our total loans classified as non-performing. Again, the purple would be our peer group. There's a decline overall in the industry, so asset quality is improving overall. But during this 5-year period of time, our loan portfolio has been performing better than our peer group. This is a comparison of net charge-offs to average loans. In this comparison, again, we compare ourselves against our peer group, which are community banks, similar size, with similar demographics as ours. Again, we are the green, our peer group is the purple. You can see that we had actually no charge-offs in 2016 and 17, where our peer group had some. In 2018, we had kind of a spike, which was 15 basis points. Since then, we have been actually below our peer group significantly. And because these last 3 years show a negative number, that indicates that we're actually recovering more on charged off loans than we're charging off. Again, very strong performance. I'm going to call this slide our lending support slide. This is just a review of how we helped our customers from a lending standpoint through the, I'll call it the COVID environment. This takes into account different types of credits that we provided support for. Commercial credits, we actually did $12.5 million of deferrals on commercial loans. As of the end of last year, I also show you where the current balances of those are. So all loans that were in a deferral were resolved. We had no loans in deferral on the commercial side. Retail forbearances, this is principally mortgages. First mortgage, we had $751,000. And again, we had a zero balance in deferrals at the end of last year. We participated in the Paycheck Protection Plan during rounds 1 and round 2. In round 1, we did $16.1 million in advances. And as of 12/31/21, we had forgiveness of just of almost all of that. We had $2,100 in balance. Round 2, we did $9.5 million in advances, and we had $3.9 million in balances at the end of the year. Since then, all of round 1 has been forgiven, and there's been further declines on the outstanding balances of round 2 PPP. The next several slides will illustrate our performance from a net income standpoint. Again, nice trajectory here the last 3 years. Our strategic plan has been to put more loans on the books. Loans are the greatest earning asset that we can invest in. Nice improvement again in consolidated net income over the last 3 years, trajectory moving upward. And last year at $3,478,000. Likewise, you would expect that to result in an increase in earnings per share, which it did. Our earnings per share last year was $7.98. Again, this reflecting that same trajectory and improvement of earnings on share per share. Return on assets, again, is moving in a similar trajectory. The last 4 years have indicated improvements. 2018 being at 66 basis points, improving to 83 basis points in 2019, 105 basis points in 2020, and 114 basis points this last year. We are hovering really close to the average of our peer group, making gains in that area, and actually we're identical to our peer group at a 1.14 ROA last year. You would expect that as earnings go up and returns per share go up, there would be an increase in return on equity. Again, a nice trajectory here, improvements over the last 3 years. Last year's return on equity at 11.69%. The last slide I'm going to share with you is FNB Hartford Bancorp stock value. This is a comparison of our computed book value versus the appraised value of our stock. Again, book value is the green bar, purple is the appraised value. We have our stock appraised by an independent third party each year. We just received the valuation a week ago for our stock, and it came in at $86 per share. That's $13.50 per share increase, about 16.8% increase in valuation from 2021. This blue line kind of shows the ratio of appraised versus book value. So 5 years ago, and actually the ratio is the right numbers on the right hand side of this graph. So in 2017, the ratio of appraised value versus book value was about 1.5. It improved to 1.20 last year. That's reflective of two components. One is obviously the improvement in performance of Forte Bank. That represents about 11% of that change, and 7% is an appreciation in market value for community banks in general. So that would represent about, like I said, about that 16 to 17% increase in valuation. Very, very strong performance overall within the bank, and it is being reflected in an increase in the market value of our stock. So if you want to know what's the value that you put on your balance sheet of our stock today, it would be $86 per share versus the $72.50 a year ago. Just a few things I'd like to add to my commentary with regards to what I've shared with you in the slides. Again, Forte Bank's performance last year was exceptional. That's attributable to the Forte Bank team, and that's across the board. All employees participated in that improvement, and very pleased with that. Evidenced by strong growth in almost every category across the bank: loans, deposits, investments. Again, strong performance on the sale of loans sold into the secondary market, given the fact that 2020 was an anomaly there. Again, we hit our budgets in every category: deposit growth, loan growth, investment income, fixed rate mortgage loan origination, and asset quality. While all of that was going on, we still had some challenges. COVID and the COVID environment continued to play a factor in 2021. Labor constraints and compression within the availability of finding talent was a challenge as well. Towards the latter part of 2021, we had several employees continuing to be out by bouts with COVID. That created a challenge for us in terms of maintaining customer service levels. We did end up closing one of our branches for 3 days, I believe it was, and moving staff around. Our staff went through a lot in 2021 as a result of managing the COVID events as they occurred, but very, very pleased with them. They handled it in great fashion and did all they could to provide the greatest level of customer support and service that we could. So they really stepped up and did everything that the management team asked of them. So again, very, very proud of the efforts of our entire team and achievement of some really significant goals. Finally, I would just like to add, I'm kind of doing double duty today, serving as secretary and providing information from an organizational standpoint. And that's a result of a retirement. Lori Hilger, who is the bank's CFO, retired in March after 19 years with our bank, 16 additional years with another financial institution, so 35 years in the banking industry. Lori joined our bank in 2004 as the bank's first CFO. Really did an outstanding job of elevating the bank's efforts internally as far as financial management and accounting. She brought a lot of our tax preparation and tax management requirements in-house, implemented formal budgeting process, helped us manage technology, the deployment and support of technology, improved our asset liability and interest rate risk management practices, improved liquidity monitoring, and also developed secondary sources of liquidity. Just a really strong leader for the bank, well-versed in her role as a chief financial officer, an active participant in the community as well, and a strong supporter of Forte Bank and independent community banking. So much applause and thanks goes to Lori for her tenure here at Forte Bank and her contributions to our organization, and we wish her the very best and applaud her efforts and hopefully extend our best to her as she enjoys retirement. Lori was very gracious in giving us advance notice of her intent to retire. We began recruiting for the CFO position in the summer of last year. We reviewed and interviewed several candidates. We hired a gentleman by the name of Doug Persich. Doug joined us late January. He had already scheduled a family event for this week, and therefore he's not with us today. But we're very, very happy to have Doug on board with us. Doug joins us from another community bank where he was the CFO for the past 5 years, I believe 14 years in community banking, a graduate of the University of Wisconsin-Madison in accounting, holds his CPA designation, and is also a graduate of the School of Banking from Madison. So comes to us with a good background in community banking as well as a very solid financial educational background. So I'm very pleased to have Doug on board and part of our executive management team, and believe that he will contribute to the company in a very positive manner as well too. So just wanted to share those comments with you, and certainly if you have any questions about anything that I have provided with regards to the bank's balance sheet, income and expense statement, or the PowerPoint presentation, which included performance metrics, I'd be happy to address those with you now. No questions. Easy group. Well, thank you, and we appreciate your continued support as shareholders. We couldn't do what we do without you. The team is working really hard to provide a really solid investment for our shareholders, one that's appreciating and value and provides great safety and soundness as well too. So thank you.
As we continue on, we will have the elections of Class 2 directors. So corporation directors are elected on a classified basis, with the corporation having 3 classes of directors. Directors are generally elected to serve for a 3-year term or shorter if a director was elected or appointed to fill a vacancy. The bank's 3 classes of directors are elected and serve on staggered terms. The following individuals have been placed into nomination by the board of directors to serve as class 2 directors. If elected, their terms would expire on the annual meeting of corporation in 2025. Mark J. Hauser, Timothy G. Perman, and Kenneth D. Reiser. In accordance with provisions outlined within the corporation's bylaws for the election of the directors, no other nominations for directors have been received. As such, I will declare that the nominations for directors have been closed, and the individuals so named will be those for whom voting will take place. So the key point for shareholders voting, there will be the appointment of Kathy Ingalls and Tim Perman as the ballot clerks. So if you prepared and returned a proxy, you may allow your proxy to stand, and shares will be cast as directed in the proxy. Shareholders present in person wishing to cast the paper ballot shall have received the ballot at the registration table in the bank lobby. Those shareholders attending via Zoom webinar may cast a paper ballot by requesting a ballot from either Kathy Ingalls or Tim Perman as ballot clerks. You may contact Kathy or Tim by calling 262-673-5800. Please ask to speak with Kathy or Tim directly. All ballots should be returned via the following fax: 262-670-2226. At this, in-person ballots may be cast and presented to one of the ballot clerks. Voting will remain open until 3 p.m. Central Standard Time this afternoon. Again, any shareholders who submitted a proxy may vote by ballot. However, if you are doing so, you will be required to do so in accordance with the provisions outlined in the February 25th, 2022 letter to shareholders. Those provisions require the shareholder to contact one of the ballot clerks appointed for today's meeting to receive a ballot, and then submit the ballot via electronic means by the deadline. So with that, I'd just like to say a few words, as we have had some changes with the board. So I would like to start out by thanking Tom Malarkey for being a member of the board of directors since December 2003. Tom retired from the board April 2021, having reached the organization mandatory retirement age of 75. Tom has been an invaluable member of the board of directors and to the management and employees of the company, having served on various committees of the board, including the Building and Facilities, Directors, Loan, and Audit Committee. Over an 18-year tenure on the board of directors, Tom has distinguished himself with an extensive knowledge of community banking. So with that said, we wish to thank Tom for his many contributions to the board of directors and to the company. In May 2021, we welcomed Craig Wolf to the board of directors. Craig is the president and CEO of Edward H. Wolf and Sons Incorporated. He is involved in many organizations in the community. A few of them include Kettle Moraine Lutheran Foundation, Wisconsin Motor Carrier Association, Village of Slinger Police Commission, Slinger Allenton Rotary Club, Slinger Volunteer Fire Department, and Washington County Dive Rescue Team. We all on the board welcome Craig to the board of directors, and we look forward to Forte Bank continuing to grow and prosper as an independent community bank. I would like to go through the attributes used in considering candidates for directorship. Highest personal integrity, must be honest and forthright in personal and professional dealings. Established track record of success, success in business management, business ownership, and recognized success in a professional position. community involvement. Must be active in the community, a willingness to share time and talents for the better of the community, supportive of community events, projects, and initiatives. Valued customer of Forte Bank, established and significant relationship and reliance upon Forte Bank for personal and/or business banking needs. A willingness and enthusiasm towards recommending the bank to family, friends, and peers. Recognizes and supports the value of community banking. Possesses a shared belief in the attributes of Forte Bank and community banking. Understands and has an appreciation for the connection of the bank, personal, corporate, and small business, and the collective success brought about via strong community banking. Willingness to commit time and energy. Ability to attend regular meetings, regular scheduled meetings, and impromptu meetings. Willingness to become highly knowledgeable on matters pertinent to banking rules and regulations, economics, risk management, and business development. Ability to work in concert with other directors, management, and regulators. A willingness to place the goals, objectives of the bank's shareholders ahead of personal interests. With that all said, I would like to thank the entire board for the willingness and ability to commit their time and energy to the success of Forte Bank and remaining an independent community bank. I would also like to acknowledge the efforts of the entire Forte Bank team. All the hard work from all the departments in the bank have aided in the success we have had in 2021, and we remain focused on being the most highly recognized and respected bank in our market. With that, we are on to the preliminary voting data, election of the directors. Okay, I have to get my cheaters. Okay, roll call of shareholders. Shareholders voting in person, 2,100. Shareholders represented by proxy, 350,186. Total shares voted, 352,286, 81%. Shareholders absent, 83,666, for a total of 435,952. To elect as Class 2 directors, the three persons listed below: Mark J. Hauser, Timothy G. Perman, Kenneth D. Reiser. Votes for the three nominees present, 2,100. Proxy, 338,221, for a total of 340,321. Withhold authority to vote for the three nominees. Present, 0. Proxy, 11,600, for a total of 11,600. Withhold authority to vote for individual nominee. Present, 0. Proxy, 365. Total, 365. Total shares voted, 352,286. On the matter of the election of directors, as just announced, I will recognize that the three nominees have received sufficient number of votes in favor of their election as directors of the corporation. I would declare them duly elected, subject to 3 p.m. In recognition of the number of shares cast via proxy and in closure of for all voting and confirmation by the corporation's secretary. I now ask for a motion for the same proxy arrangement for next year's annual meeting.
So moved.
Okay. Motion by Ken Riser, seconded by Mark Hauser. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Are there any final questions or comments from any shareholder or anyone on Zoom? Okay, having concluded all business properly come before this annual meeting, we will end in-person and electronic activities. This meeting will automatically adjourn at 3 p.m. today. So I'd just like to thank everyone for attending, and for anyone here personally, we do have some cookies if you'd like to take any on the way out.
Just one other thing I think I'll share with you. We did follow the same format today and timing as we have for the previous two annual meetings. For the corporation, obviously heavily impacted by the pandemic. It is our intent next year to revert back to our historical format, which will be an evening meeting. Again, hopefully in person for everybody. We will continue with the Zoom option going forward. We believe that that will be an ongoing component of our annual meetings, just to provide as many opportunities for shareholders to participate. And we hope to bring back a social hour after the meeting next year as well. So we very much appreciate everybody's understanding of the circumstances and allowing us to continue to carry on the requirements of the corporation as we have. But again, just want to share with you that next year we hope to move back to our standard format for the annual meeting. So again, thank you all for being with us today. We appreciate your involvement and your continued support as shareholders. Thank you.